I'm going to spend 10 minutes talking about code bugs and the consequences they have. Yeah, well, these are my underwriters. You may have seen my story on the History Channel. The classic story of the great American CWNE who took on too many bugs. I look good. All right, seriously though, this presentation kind of comes from 15 years of putting up what I'm about to rant about. It's a matter of, to me, it's all about credibility. Your reputation is everything, both personally and professionally. And code bugs, I'm about to make the point, kind of, undermine your reputation. And that I really have a problem with. You can do everything right and still get burned, right? You can do all the investment in tools and training and people, everything that we all try to do in our jobs, hopefully, day in and day out, try to hit every possible, methodology of doing things the right way. That's what we all strive to do. But even after you've done everything right, this may be the result, right? Is this ringing familiar at all? To me, the underlying code is one part of the equation we have very little control over. I'm not just talking about controllers or NMS or APs, it's also client operating systems and drivers and such. It's one area we really don't have control over. And I have no doubt that some of you are thinking, well, I put everything in the lab and I test and you must not test and this is more your problem than the vendor. My problem with that is that, some bugs only come out at scale. You can't test for everything. And for the money that you spend on a lot of this stuff, you shouldn't have to do the QAing for the vendor. I feel that way in my heart of hearts. There's only so much that you can do. Can I get a witness? Thank you. Some things you really can't practically test. Yes, absolutely, you want to do what you can in that regard. But some things you just can't do. You can't put 10 or 20,000 clients on a test environment, or at least I can. I certainly have no idea how I might go about doing that. I can do the obvious, and we do that before we roll out code of almost every sort, except for the clients. I certainly live in a BYOD world. I cannot dictate what the clients bring and what their code is. I can only control the infrastructure, and even there, again, I can only go so far with my testing. The red bullet is really important as wireless gets more pervasive, as networking gets more pervasive, as controllers get bigger, and more eggs end up in our baskets. When code spins out, the blast zone gets bigger, right? The stakes are getting higher. And there on the bottom of the slide, I say, why are we not supposed to trust what gets published to the support sites? I have a problem with going and seeing a bunch of things listed in the drop-down, and to me they're all valid, but you're supposed to play roulette and pick one that hopefully works. It just isn't right. The consequences, reputational damage. Again, I kind of let off with that, and it's not just you, the wireless LAN doer. This stuff makes your boss look bad, it makes your boss's boss look bad. The network starts getting blamed for everything. Certainly it calls your vendor's credibility into question. And depending on where you sit in your food chain and what kind of organization you are, it can really make the whole company or group look bad. And the questions that get asked at the bottom, did we pick the wrong solution? Did we pick the wrong people to run that solution? Everything starts to feel like a network problem, and everything starts to feel like it's related to that bad code. Then there's the wasted time factor. This is just a glimpse of my last year. I spent documented over 400 man hours just chasing code bugs. And then there was a bigger group working with me to try to debug some of this stuff. And then you can see the byproducts, the fallout of that. We had projects that we had to put off because we were chasing code bugs. We had to disable some features that we paid good money for because of code bugs. It certainly doesn't help the relationships with the vendors. It's really hard to become a reference account when you feel like you're living in this, kind of ugly world of, what are they giving us that I have no choice but to put out? And I have experienced paranoia. I'm afraid to do anything. The devil you know, and maybe the next round is going to be even worse. So, after all that, what is the answer? I don't know. I just wanted to come up and bitch. So thank you. I feel a lot better, and I thank you for helping me through that. The attempts to keep the vendor honest, I'm sure all of you can kind of, maybe or most of you can search within yourselves and say, yeah, I called and I kind of went off on somebody that didn't make the world, they're just living in it, and I'm kind of putting it all on him or her, and that's not right. Really easy to have these situations devolve into that. I would say, do your best to escalate it to not VP, no offense to VP, but the vice president, not our VP, but the vice president of whatever company you're dealing with, product managers, anybody that you can get to, don't put up with it. I've had fairly good success with a number of companies taking my complaints there. It doesn't feel good. It's never fun to be confrontational, but I would say advocate for yourself and for your end users. If you're going to go the route of surgically shaming, Twitter, etc., be credible. The last thing you want to do is look like an idiot for bringing up something that really is your fault at the end of the day. So, if you're going to do that, by all means do it. That's part of what makes social media, in my opinion, worth participating in. It gives you a channel that you never had before to get some of your angst out and maybe get results. And then I know it's easier said than done, but ultimately, you may have no choice but to change vendors. And again, far easier said than done, especially as you scale up bigger. So, at the end of all of this, my final words, it ain't innovation if it sucks. You can get flooded with features that look great on paper. If they don't work, or they cause the features that you need to spin out of control, it's not innovation. At least it's not my definition of innovation. I come from a place where stability is everything. If I can't give my vendor, or if I can't give my customers, my end users stability, there's a problem in my world. So I'm all into features, but the features can't come at the expense of stability. I don't know if this is just a generational thing, but it really feels like we're kind of living in an age of what I'm calling crowdsourced QA testing. Write it quick, get it out the door, wait for the cries, wait for the anguish and all of that, and that's how you tell whether you've done a good job with your code. I don't understand that. I don't think it's always been that way, but again, maybe that's just my own perspective. I think the vendors really need to do a better job with QA, and maybe I'd like to see everybody take a year off of development and fix the bugs. I mean, that's my... I also truly think the third bullet, some of the companies that are out there, I think they're leading the market in spite of themselves, not because they're doing a really bang-up job with their code. Again, my own, surliness on the topic. And finally, my prayer, my begging to the industry, whatever you want to call it, it just has to get better. It just can't sustain the way it is. That's all I got.